One of the major companies making general-purpose humanoid robots is Sanctuary. Over the last few months, Sanctuary has been on fire, announcing partnerships with Accenture, a large auto supply manufacturer Magna, who will be both using the bots and making the bots, a partnership with Microsoft, and now in breaking news, Sanctuary is announcing a new investment from BDC Capital and InBC Investment Corp. With over $140 million raised to date, Sanctuary now has the funds to accelerate the development of their bot. I've got Scott Walter with us. He is a two-time robotics company founder. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Herbert. Belated Happy Canada Day and a little bit early Happy 4th of July.
So Sanctuary is a humanoid bot company, general purpose. They're one of the early ones. We've interviewed Jordy Rose before, but today big announcement. They've raised more money. This race for humanoid bots, you need money. So this is the news here. SanctuaryAI announces strategic financing from BDC Capital and InBC. It's really Canadian government is stepping up, and that's a conversation you and I need to have, because it's like this is really economic warfare between companies, but also countries. This is Canada. A company. Sanctuary is creating the world's first human-like intelligence and general-purpose robots. Sanctuary, as we interviewed Jordy, the CEO, they're really focused on human-like intelligence and the hands. We'll talk about that some more. And the goal with the funds is to accelerate their progress towards bringing AI into physical world. That's what they described it as. Tell me what you think about this raise.
Well, first, I think this is obviously very good for Sanctuary to be able to get another round of funding in there, and it's also good for the sector overall, because it means that investors are willing to invest in this particular area, and that's probably is what helps Sanctuary is the fact that they're looking around and seeing that a lot of other big companies are not only investing in it but are thinking of using these bots, so they can see there's a market out there. And it's a good investment, but let's say it's not over the top. We've been told before how sometimes companies, when they get too much money up front, they tend to not succeed because they're not hungry enough. So what we're seeing here is that Sanctuary has raised enough capital to keep going, that they can continue to do that. And if they're not succeeding in making progress, investors are not going to continue to invest. So I think this is an overall good sign for Sanctuary, that they are able to make the demonstrations that investors are convinced, as well as the investors are looking around, not just at Tesla, but also at Apptronic and Figure and what they're doing, and what companies like Amazon and BMW are doing as well to use these things. So they're saying that, okay, we've got another legitimate player out here, a little bit unique, a little bit different than some of the others, but we think it's a valid play, and so they're going ahead and investing.
So this is the current investments, the investors that they already have. So Accenture, we talked about a partnership. This is the thing about what these guys are doing. I don't know if the other bot companies are doing the same thing, but they have the ability to select who invests in them, and they want it to be a strategic partner. So Accenture is going to be consulting firm, connections with large companies in general, and wants to help implement it in businesses. You got Bell, which is a telecommunications company, Export Development Canada. I don't know who Evoc is. Magna, you know them well. They are a manufacturing company that is actually supply chain for automotive. And so not only do they know how to build products, like they build cars, they build parts, they're actually going to also build the bots for these guys and be one of the first users. SE Health, Verizon Ventures, Workday Ventures. So it also received just some sort of innovation fund money as well. So these guys seem to be doing quite well.
Yes. And I pointed out about Magna before, is that they're the largest automotive company you've never heard of. They don't have their own brand, but they do actually manufacture for a lot of the other OEMs. They also build the lines a lot of the OEMs need to be able to do the production. So they know a lot about automotive production, manufacturing. They also know about integrating robotic systems into manufacturing, as well as being able to use it for their own needs. So I see them as like, not only are they putting money in there, so they're an investor, they're also going to help them with being able to build the bot. And they're also going to be a user of the bot, and they're also going to be a reseller of the bot, because they're going to know which of their customers could actually benefit from it. So I've always felt that's been a really good strategic partnership for them to provide a lot of the things that they don't have. And that, of course, that becomes like a magnet for these other companies, that the fact that Magna is able to legitimize exactly in sort of proving out the case that Sanctuary is developing something which is going to be useful for industry. But there's another company that's not mentioned there as far as investor, but it's still been very important for them, and that's been Canadian Tire. So they've done a lot of integration work with Canadian Tire just to demonstrate that it's using. So while they are not investors, they're definitely, another user that's helped them be able to pilot a lot of this. And when we had that talk with Gordy, he kind of pointed out that, they feel that they were one of the first ones to really be able to start demonstrating it out in the field.
Yeah. And they also partner with Microsoft. Looks like they're going to use Microsoft and maybe OpenAI for the brains. So tell us a little bit more about the hands, because they really make a big deal about that. They've been working on the hands for a long time. Would you say that Tesla's 22 degrees of freedom and Sanctuary's hands are as close as there is, or how would you
Yeah, I think there's similarities, but there might be a few differences. A lot of people might say, it's kind of like the Coke Pepsi challenge where suddenly Coke blinked, right? And that the original Tesla bot hand was just 11 degree of freedom that allowed you to be able to clasp things, but not be able to spread the fingers out. And the Sanctuary hand is always, right from the very beginning, had all the degrees of freedom that you typically see in a hand, the full knuckles and the full movement of the fingers. And if you recall, we asked Suzanne Gilder back in, I think, February or March, can the bot do the Vulcan salute? And the next day, they made proof. She said, yes, it can. It can absolutely do that. And that means a couple of things, is that, not only can it spread its fingers so it can play the piano, which Elon has talked about with a 22 degree freedom hand that they have, but Elon has said it won't be able to do this. So Sanctuary has a slight, let's say, upper hand on the Tesla bot right there regarding, that extra degree of freedom. And Sanctuary sees that as being very, very important, because they feel to get the embodiment right, you've got to mimic the human body as closely as possible. There's a reason why you don't have have them bigger, or have the wrong degrees of freedom, or have elbows that go backwards or anything like that, or put an extra arm and says, no, it's got to fit the embodiment of the human body to be able to really get that. And they've also put a lot of sensors on there as well. So they felt, having sensors on the tip and everywhere else is very, very important. So from the upper body, Sanctuary is definitely a leader there. And if you ask Gordy, he will tell you they're definitely the leader. And that's something you like to see from a CEO, that, he really believes in his team, believes in his product. And the other thing is that while Gordy's competitive, he's also very appreciative of what Elon has done in this space, because he's helped to legitimize the entire market, which has allowed these other investors to say, yeah, we're going to move in here because we do see Tesla's doing something, but we also realize others are doing it and they're making a certain amount of success. So while there's a little bit of competition there, there's also a certain amount of camaraderie.
Yeah. I was going to say that Jordy is pretty out there saying that we are the leader. Yeah. This is what their CTO, Chief Technology and Product Officer, Olivia Norton, said. She said, following the incredible impact of pre-trained transformers in the digital world over the last 7 years, with acceleration in the last few, we see AI in the physical world as being the next major frontier for impacting the way we work and live. With aging populations, plummeting birth rates, changing view and work, intelligent embodied systems or general purpose robots will play an important role in provincial and national productivity. Canada has the opportunity to be a world leader in this space. That's the other thing, right? We heard Jordy say before that we're Canadians, and Canadians actually, if you look back at lots of technology, invented a lot of things. And this is, the robots, you could say that Sanctuary was one of the very early leaders in the space because they've been doing this for a little bit. Or do you think that's a little boastful that they were there early?
Well, they were all there early. And let's remember one thing. Why is Bell Canada called Bell Canada?
Okay. Oh, well, obviously.
Because Alexander Graham Bell invented the phone in Canada. So yes. So yeah, one of the most important inventions of all time. Well, I guess, he's somehow considered American, but there's also a Canadian connection there as well. So, yeah, absolutely. Canada sees that this is going to be strategically very important, not just for Canada, but for them to also be able to be a leader worldwide. And I think if you want to succeed in the market, you really got to believe in yourself and your team. And, certainly they've had a lot of firsts. Now a lot of stuff is not like so fully documented that we can go through and say, absolutely, they were the first one, but they definitely were like one of the first and a very early leader because they've been around for a while, and with some of the work they did previous to setting up Sanctuary. So we know they were there before Figure. We know they were there before Tesla. The only ones that may come before them was possibly Apptronic, Boston Dynamics, but they were definitely an early leader in this field. And they've taken a slightly different approach. And I like seeing these different approaches. I don't want everyone to be reading exactly from the same script, that they feel that mobility is not that important right now. It's like kind of a solved problem. Yeah, it's like all these other people know how to walk. But what hasn't really been solved is the upper torso part, right down the hands, everything. They're putting a lot of focus doing that. So their feel is that when they get that down and really get that working, then they'll be able to sell the rest of the mobility. And as well as a lot of people, also feel that there are a lot of jobs where you absolutely don't need mobility. Now, we talked about that, in the automotive factory, you definitely need it in many, many cases, but there are also a lot of small assembly, fine assembly, which is what you need that dexterity for in those hands. In many cases, the workers are just sitting there the whole day, and the only time they leave their station is for a coffee break or for lunch. And the rest of the time, they're sitting. And when you're sitting, basically it means you're not using your legs. And so you're always going to find lots of operations like that. So there is definitely a good niche. And I'm not even sure I would call it a niche, because a niche sounds like it's really small. It's a pretty big area that they would be able to go into and be very successful. And so that's the reason for their focus, which is, as we know, a little bit different than the other companies, but that's fine because there are plenty of niches out there.
Okay, so you and I interviewed Jordy. Let's go ahead and play a little bit of it and see what we can learn.
Customer sites. And by the way, nearly everybody in automotive manufacturing has these kind of like zones for prototyping, where they bring in new ideas and technologies and they try them out. So when you get into actually trying to deliver a product into something like automotive, there's a standard that's very hard to meet, and nobody meets it right out of the gate. So you start by being in the prototyping phase, and then you iterate with the customer to try to improve the technology until it passes some threshold for being deployed in production. One of the beautiful things about working with companies like Magna is that there's a need for this technology's customers to really, really want it to happen. Because like I said, the first dozen variants of this are all not going to meet the specifications of the customer tasks. So there's going to be a process where the customer is going to have to be patient and really have a lot of commitment to iterating to make it work. And if you're looking at being able to manufacture 1 billion of something, like a kind of industry that's bigger than the automotive industry in some limit that you might be able to own, at least for a while, that's a huge motivator to try to make the product work.
Okay, so he's talking about the process of building these bots that Magna. That's why you and I actually do love Magna as a partner for a bot company, because not only do they invest in them, they're going to actually use them in their factories. They're actually going to build the bots. And he's saying, hey, they have to be patient, but eventually they realize this is going to just transform their business, but also the world. And eventually they're going to be building 1 billion of these. And so they want to make sure it works. But it's slow going, right? What's your analysis of where they're at right now?
Well, basically what Jordy said, I think is a very good summary of everything else going on. So of course he was talking about it from his perspective, but he could have been talking about a lot of the other companies, because we know a lot of them are working with some pretty big companies that have to be looking at it the same way. They have to know it's not going to be working right now. We're going to have to be patient. There's going to be a lot of iterations. So we've already seen that Figure is doing the same thing at BMW, and they've got a test area where they're going ahead and prototyping something. It's far from going into production yet, but you'll see that, the companies like BMW are emblazing their logo on those videos because they want it to be known that they are doing this. Mercedes did the same thing with Apptronics. So you've got all these big companies that want this to succeed, exactly like what Jordy is saying there, is that they're going to be patient. They want it to succeed. And I think it's kind of twofold. And part of it is that we've seen something in the Sanctuary press release. It's not just about driving costs down. It's not just that, we're going to have a lower labor rate. It's that we're actually going to have laborers. We're actually going to have workers, because the big concern is that there's a labor shortage. They came right out of the gate and said, there's a labor shortage. We've got to fill that in there. And you can bet all these big companies are seeing that. They've all known about it. Agility has talked about it. Remember, they ended up working with GXO in last December because they couldn't hire enough people for the Christmas holidays. They said, let's bring in your bot and see if it works. And not only did it work, it, had a return on investment, which meant usable, it was doing usable work, and it wasn't exorbitant as far as the price of being able to use it. So you're seeing more and more of that as wanting to go in there of to fill in the labor openings that are not being filled. And that's why these bots are going in there for, another reason. And that I think is one of the big ones. There's a big labor shortage, and that I think that's probably going to come through louder and clearer as people begin to look at it. It's not going to be taking people's jobs. It's basically going to allow us to maintain the productivity we expect now.
So one of the questions I have is $140 million raised to date for a humanoid general purpose robot with AI and all that enough? We have Figure Robotics, Figure AI raised $675 million. I guess the question is, how much does Magna own of Sanctuary? Because if Magna is actually an owner, maybe they don't need the $140 million because they're going to be the ones spending the money. You've worked with Magna. You know how they operate. Even with Fisker, did they own Fisker Automotive?
I don't know with Fisker or not. I believe Fisker was a customer. And, the other thing to think about it is that it may seem like, not enough money to do it, but if you have a lot of partners, then you don't have to worry about it. So they're partnering with Microsoft, which is going to help them a lot with the compute area. And so that helps. So you assume there's probably going to be a lot of services and kind of coming in there. The same thing with Magna is they're going to be doing a lot of that testing. And, normally that's going to be a lot of expense, but Magna probably sees it from their side as something that they want to invest in. BMW is probably doing the same thing with Figures. Like Figure's not paying BMW for all that work, allow us to come in there. They're doing a little bit, and Figure might be getting a little bit of money out of it. I think they said they're getting like $500,000, which is going to cover their travel expenses, and that's about it. But, at least the fact you have access to something to be able to do the testing, personnel, other engineers are giving you feedback, that's invaluable. I mean, that's really, really hard to put a dollar figure on there. And the fact that, it's sort of coming from people who want to see it succeed has a lot of value. So you could say that, they've only raised 140, but, they may really be getting 250 overall in general.
We don't have to read too much into that. But so this is the Gen 7, which is the last. We've not seen the Gen 8. I think he told us that you'll see a new generation once a year. So in Gen 7, I noticed, right, we still have not seen the legs or the feet. If I don't know if I'm right about that, but basically this was one of the latest videos they showed where, you could see the hands. So they're showing here 2 hands really fast, faster than anyone when they dropped this video, which was February. But they don't have legs and feet yet. What do you think about that? Yeah,
again, it's something they're not that concerned with. They have a design. So we've seen that they do have a design, what the legs would look like, but they feel it's a solved problem. They will be able to do it when it's necessary. They're focusing on that. So it's not, and even when I've spoken with some people at Magna to ask them about that, they were like, the legs aren't that important right now for a lot of the applications that we're seeing to be able to go through. The hand is very good because they've gone through a lot of different generations. You can see the movement of the fingers there. You see how it kind of moves around a little bit differently than just being able to be closed together, very close. So they have that individual movement or abduction that on the fingers. The other thing is that Sanctuary's speed is very impressive. So the video you showed of them being able to move around, that's very good because it requires 2 things. One, the inference just has to be able to keep up. So in many cases, we're not sure if some of these bots that we're seeing, if they're really slow because the inference can't quite, keep up in time. It's still kind of thinking about what its next move has to be. And then there's others just making sure that you have a system that mechanically can go ahead and go pretty fast. I'm not surprised that they have the mechanics to go that fast. I'm just surprised that everyone else doesn't, because we know at least one company is able to have pretty good speed, and that's Unitree. So when we watch Unitree walking, I mean, not only do they walk really fast, they're doing backflips and all those other stuff. She's like, and they're using actuators that are about the same size. So I can't believe they sort of discovered some new physics there. So it seems to me a lot of them can do it, and that it may be a little bit on how they have to refine their inference and their control systems to speed it up. So when you see Sanctuary doing that, it tells you that maybe they have some sort of breakthrough there that allows them to do that pick and placing so much faster than everyone else.
we've heard other people say that they've just not yet focused on speed. Speed will be something that they can do once they decide to do it. Right now, it's about the autonomous learning. It's about the dexterity, and then picking up and being able to do things when it fails. That's what they're focused on. Eventually, they'll just raise the speed. Okay, so that is Sanctuary's Phoenix humanoid robot from Canada. They've announced that they've raised, they didn't say exactly how much, but they said now the total funding is now over 140 million to date. It's from, Canadian BDC Capital and InBC Investment Corp. And then they obviously talked about all their existing investors, and it's the who's who. I mean, these are decent size. And then I think Microsoft is not even listed here, but Microsoft is a partner as well. Maybe they're not an investor. And OpenAI, I believe, is also a partner, right? NVIDIA?
Correct.
I mean,
yes. Yes.
NVIDIA?
They were up on the stage with Jensen. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So that's lots of partnerships, and they got enough money to make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I believe these numbers are showing our US dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. We've confirmed that's because obviously there's Canadian and you convert it. Thank you so much.
I mean,
Scott,
if they said it
appreciate
Canadian,
this.
would have been a more impressive number, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We know. They're actually in Vancouver, which is my hometown, and I'm in Seattle right now. So one day we'll come there and we'll do a site visit with those guys. Thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate you. Follow Scott on X at Going Ballistic 5. Watch the other videos that we just did about Sanctuary. And Scott and I have done over 80 videos interviewing a lot of the CEOs and executives of humanoid bots and also human scale bot companies. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.